Hey guys, bryonato here, and today I wanted to talk with you all about Titanfall 2's newest category, Fast Any Percent. I want to go over what it is and why it exists and how it exists, everything we're doing with the category. For those of you that are just clicking on this video wondering what Fast Any Percent is, I'm not going to waste any of your time. I'm just going to let you know what it is. Fast Any Percent is a Titanfall 2 speedrun category created by the community that uses a preset and decided upon set of load points and save files to skip all of the really long and egregious cutscenes and waiting periods in the game. So like Cole's dialogue, 18-hour cutscene, the fold weapon cutscenes are gone. They're not in the category. And it saves about, I believe at its fastest, it's going to save anywhere from 26 to 27 minutes, I think, if I really get that time down. In any case, that's what fast any percent is. So if you were clicking here just for that, there you go. I kind of want to go over why this category exists now and how we got here. And I want to explain our reasoning for why we have certain load points at certain spots and why we don't at other spots. And kind of like the limitations and everything. So this is going to be an all-encompassing video that I hope is going to answer all questions about fast any percent. And so to answer the first question, why it exists, I think we kind of have to go back to the beginning. So Titanfall 2 on release, despite its critical acclaim, it wasn't the most popular. And there's a lot of reasons for that that all kind of deserve their own video. It had like a weird release date, the marketing wasn't the best, but I don't want to get too much into that. But in any case, despite its lower than expected player count, the speedrun has always been fairly popular considering Titanfall 2's, I guess you'd say it was a niche. Um, and you know, SGDQ helped with this a bit, but even before SGDQ, the run was it was fairly popular. And that is because at its core, when you're not sitting around waiting for cutscenes, Titanfall 2 is a really, really fun speedrun. There just really the movement in the game just feels good whether you're speedrunning it or not. But again, at its core, it's just fun. The movement is intuitive. If you can think it, you can usually do it. It's the learning curve is very rewarding in terms of like the improvement that you see in yourself as you learn the game. It all just comes together really well. And so I think that definitely speaks to how good of a speed game it is that despite in a normal any percent run, you're literally waiting for over 20 minutes throughout the whole run. Like a third of the run is cutscenes, and we still have all these people running it actively. But yeah, so there's always been that single problem, right? Despite the game being good, there's always been a single problem with it, and that is the cutscenes and waiting. And so we kind of wanted to look at this. We looked at this problem like, okay, we have a problem. How do we solve it? And I think what was really kind of the catalyst in getting this pushed ahead, excuse me while I switch scenes here, was I actually saw a post on r/speedrun. How long ago was this? Was it really only 14 days ago? I think it was longer ago than this, but in any case, I saw a post on r/speedrun, and it was a Super Mario Sunshine run, fast any percent in 47:36, and I was like, oh, this is obviously way faster than any percent. And of course, you look here and it says, to answer the inevitable questions, fast any percent is a gecko code. It loads you directly in the levels in order for standard any percent speedrun, cutting out the airstrip and retrips to the plaza, which is the overworld. Shortens all the text boxes, and then in any case, it's like a streamlined any percent where you're not waiting around for stuff you don't have control of. And so I had previously had discussions with people about this. Um, I had previously had discussions with people about this. I would say as early as August or September. I had discussed with people like Overzero or Taskanos that you could use you could use quick saves. You could use like a preset quick save files to skip all like the waiting periods in the game. And so at the time, I was thinking like, oh, we'll do a save before you get in BT for the first time, and that'll skip that whole thing. And then we'll do like a save here and a save here and a save here. I was trying to skip like every single little bit of waiting. And I think if we would have went through with something like that, it would have been like, probably like 20 save files. And you have to think for every single save file, you need to have a hotkey for it on your keyboard. So we're going to come back to this. And you can't, I think it's pretty unrealistic to bind 20 different keys to saves and not have some sort of issues with that, right? Um, so we had a problem, which was cutscenes, and we wanted to approach it, and so what I kind of decided on was we wanted to skip the most with the least. So skip the most amount of time with the least amount of saves. And that's kind of how we got where we were. Um, and if you're still kind of wondering, well, still, why are you doing this? So Titanfall 2, the speedrun itself is a little over a year old now. I've actually been running it I started running it last January, so it's about a year for me as well. I think it's about a year and 4 months. In any case, that doesn't matter. Um, so I mean, even for me personally, people always ask like, Brian, how did you sit through cutscenes like all the time, like literally thousands of times? And for me, it's that drive to get better. You know, I always wanted that 122. I always wanted that better all helmets time. But even for someone like me, who's like arguably the most motivated person in the community, like it's just in terms of the dedication to the game, it's worn out for me. I did everything I wanted to. I got a 122. I got a 127 on all helmets, and that try not to humble brag here. I don't have any competition, so I feel like that drive can only go on so long for me. It's really discouraging when you sit through like literally all of this, all these cutscenes. I mean, you're just like minutes and minutes and minutes, and you sit through this part, and you sit through the cutscene, and let's say you're like by this point you're like 8 minutes into the game, and then like let's say like I make a mistake somewhere on BT, and then all of a sudden I'm all the way back at the beginning, all the way, or like I'm all the way back at the beginning of the game, and so it's like 10 minutes that's just gone. So it's really brutal to deal with something like that. Oh, do I have my splits open here? Anyway, and so we're thinking, how do we solve this problem? So the community decided upon a preset amount of saves at preset load points, and now we have fast any%. And so I kind of want to go over each of these load points piece by piece and discuss why they are what they are. So the first one, and again, remember the mindset here is to skip the most with the least. So the first one we want to talk about here is the save file one. So this is going to be after we select the first dialog option following the completion of the gauntlet. And so the reason that there is like a brief bit of waiting before you load a cutscene or before you load a save is because you don't want there to be like any room for error. I wanted to choose points that have where basically like you're not immediately moving from like a really hard trick and then immediately loading a save. You have like a brief period to kind of collect yourself and then you load. That prevents incorrect loads or misclicks or anything like that. So for example, like right here, this is the first one. After you complete the gauntlet, you come back over to Lastimosa here, you wait for the first dialog option to pop up, and then as soon as you select that dialog option, you load the save. So again, it gives you a brief moment to collect yourself. You want to run Fantasy Titanfall? You load the dialog option, then you load the save. So as soon as you load the save, it takes you to the beginning of BT 7274, right as you're putting on the helmet. And so so the reasoning for this is yes, it skips a bit of gameplay at the beginning of the game when you would crash land and then move over to the crash, or then you'd move from the crash land to the 18-hour cutscene. This is only skipping about 10 seconds of gameplay at most, and even then the difference of like a perfect crash site and like a really bad one, assuming you didn't die to the escape pod, is probably like 6 to 7 seconds at the most. Um, it's a forgettable part of the game that we felt worth skipping. And here's the thing you have to think about: if we did skip that, or if we didn't skip that, we would have to load a save at the beginning of the crash site, and then we'd have to load another save at the beginning of 18-hour cutscene. So that's like 2 keybinds for 8 seconds of gameplay. So again, most with the least. Um, and so for the rest of BT, and actually all the way up to Abyss Chapter 1, you play through the game as normal. And you might be thinking, oh, well, there's this cutscene, not cutscene, but there's this bit of waiting when you get in BT for the first time, and you're chilling here for a while. And again, we'd only be skipping this one cutscene. There'd be a save. You'd have to load like right before you got in BT, and then it would take you to right here, to right when you start the tutorial. And even there's more waiting after this. So it's just it's uh it's not worth an extra button. And we only have 9 save files total, and that's kind of for me personally. I have them bound through F1 through F9. So our next load point is right after you kill Kane. And right after you kill Kane, if you guys remember, there is a bunch of dialogue um, as you discover after you take off Kane's listening device. And so this takes you to the beginning of Abyss Chapter 1. And the load point that we use here as a visual cue, we wait until Cooper's hand touches Kane's helmet for the first time. So again, you have a brief period of time to reorient yourself. You're ready to go. Um, your hands are like aren't like flying around doing crazy movement. So you wait, and then right there, as soon as his hand touches the helmet, you load the save. And this takes you to the beginning of Abyss Chapter 1. And then after this, I don't think we have any saves until Affecting Cause Chapter 3. Which I guess I will bring up my next point, I believe, of contention, which would be, why don't you skip any part of Abyss Chapter 2? Isn't this a huge autoscroller? Well, the thing with this is that Abyss Chapter 2 it's all meaningful gameplay, right? Like there's still a risk of death, there's still things that you have to do correctly to not die and to play through it well. So yes, it's still technically an autoscroller, but like um that's like not a problem that I think that is worthy of skipping. It's still all like meaningful gameplay, and there's a lot of it here too. Um, so yeah, technically, if you go fast, nothing you really do matters until you get to dome launch. But even so, even if dome launch is the only thing that matters in this entire level in terms of like how much time you save, there's still things you have to do correctly here to not die. You know, I think anybody that speedran this game has died on Abyss 2 like 3 or 4 times on their first run, if not more. So it's just it's meaningful gameplay. So that's why we don't skip Abyss 2. Um, our next load point isn't all the way until I believe it's Effect and Cause Chapter 3. Once we hit Effect and Cause Chapter 3, that's when things start getting a little. Uh, that's when we start doing more loads. So this one again, um, this loads you straight to the beginning of the Beacon Chapter 1. And again, what we're waiting for here is after you begin the scan, this skips all the dialogue afterwards. After you begin the scan, you wait for the text to start falling on the left side of the screen. So about right here. So again, gives you a moment to orient yourself. You have a visual cue you're looking for, and then you load. Brings you to the next point. Um, and again, okay, so then you have Beacon Chapter 1. There's a bunch of cool dialogue here, so we want to skip all this. So the load point here, I originally thought it would be when this door opens, but I realized that this door can open when you're not even close to the door. So um, what we decided on was you wait for BT to talk to Cole for the first time. So as soon as BT says Captain, you're good to go. So again, time to orient yourself, hands on the button to load, Captain. And then BT says Captain, you load into Beacon Chapter 2. Um, so I think the next really big point of contention here would be the load point for Beacon 3. So there's actually a lot of gameplay that we skip here. You guys probably remember me just saying, Brian, weren't you just talking about meaningful gameplay on Abyss 2? Um, so the gameplay here in this section at the beginning of Beacon Chapter 3, it is my argument that it is completely it's not like really meaningful gameplay, I guess would be my argument here. So if you think about when you start Abyss Chapter 3, you wait for dialogue, you wait for a door to open, you go use the arc tool to activate the core with all the radiation and stuff. You go back, you wait for more dialogue, you get in BT, you go activate moon boots, and activating moon boots is really probably the only time intensive thing here. And even then, someone that's really good at activating moon boots and somebody that's really bad. I mean, it's probably let's say like you miss activating moon boots, which it's not RNG, but it feels like it. It's only going to cost you like 10 seconds at the most. You know, you activate moon boots and then you wait for more dialogue. So we load straight from the beginning of Beacon 3, and watch this. We load straight from the beginning of Beacon 3 to the beginning of Super Fastball. So basically, what happens here is you already have moon boots. Uh, Super Fastball is about to begin. The gameplay we're skipping, there's not like a risk of death. There's not a really hard trick you have to do. Moon boots is really simple. If you've done it before, it's very very easy. Um, it's cutting out all the crap and bringing you straight to the beginning of Super Fastball. So this is the reasoning behind this. This is why the save point is where it is. Um, I think that's kind of I think that really covers everything I wanted to say about that. If you guys do have rebuttals for this, by the way, or arguments against these load points, I would love to hear them in the comments. So again, it brings you to the beginning of Super Fastball. Our next load point is right after Richter fight. So after Richter fight, we're waiting for the door to open. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I really have to drive this point home. Moment to orient yourself, clear visual cue. So as soon as the door opens, you load into Trial by Fire, and it takes you to the beginning of the orbital drop, which skips a cutscene at the beginning of the level when Sarah's talking to you about what your mission is. So again, it takes you straight to the orbital drop. Um, our next load point is right at the beginning of the arc. This one's pretty similar to the beacon. This takes you right before you drop onto Barker's ship. So, one of the reasons this save isn't right before Barker skip, and there's actually like a bit of waiting you have to do before Barker skip, is because if you do a quick save like right before Barker skip, you actually have a fixed RNG seed. Um, as far as I know, that could I'm not 100% certain on that, but whenever I've practiced like that in the past, I always seem to get the same RNG every single time. So you'll notice with this load point here, if I can stop talking in this VOD, it takes you to so it takes you right as you're dropping on the Barker ship. So this allows for like not like a fixed seed, so it's not a permanently bad seed. It's not a permanently good seed. Um, it stays like true to the game here. And so this loads you straight to right before Barker skip, and you play through the level as normal. There's no other load points until the end of the level, which would be after Viper dies for the final time. And after Viper dies for the final time, you wait for a dialogue option to pop up, clear visual cue, moment to orient yourself. And then this takes you to the beginning of the fold weapon. And so the reason that it takes you to when you're activating the seer kit, or when you're getting the seer kit for the first time, and not like afterwards, the reason there's still like a little cutscene here, is because if you do a cutscene later on, or like after you pick up the seer kit, or when you're using the data knife to hack the console here, you'll actually soft lock the game. Um, the fold weapon is really weird in terms of quick saves. It's really easy to break the game here. I had to work with these save points a lot. Um, so this just mitigates any weirdness. It makes it consistent, and you don't soft lock. Basically, what would happen here if you did a quick save later on is you wouldn't have a jump kit. You would never get your jump kit, and you just have a single jump without any jump kit boost, and you wouldn't be able to progress. So that's why this is the way it is. Our last and final load point comes at the very end of the game after Sloan fight. And so as soon as the screen goes black after you pull off the arc injector here, right there, then you load and it takes you to the very end of the game. So, I think if there's any other rebuttals I want to cover here. Oh, I think the last thing I'd want to talk about is, Brian, isn't there like a lot of waiting on Effect and Cause 1? Why don't you do any skips on Effect and Cause 1? So yeah, on Effect and Cause 1, this is probably the longest waiting point in the game. Um, after you grab the helmet down here, after you grab the helmet down here, you have to go back to BT. He has to bring up the audio log between Anderson and Sarah, and you have to wait for BT to throw the zip line. So my original idea was I could go from this point to when you're about to jump for the early zipline skip or the early zipline grab. But then again, um, I feel like this was forcing runners to do a specific strat, which is the early zipline. Not everybody wants to do this strat. Not everybody should be forced to do this strat. I thought it made the most sense here just to leave everything in. So if you think about, even if I did do a save point right here, as soon as you get done with the zipline, there's more waiting that you have to do. There's a waiting period at the door down here, and then there's more waiting you do even after this. So it's just like I'm not going to make an individual save file to skip every single part of this. The reason that, again, kind of coming back to skipping the most with the least. The fact that this is pretty concise in 9 save files. Again, this is 9 keybinds you have to have on your keyboard. Every button is going to load a different save file. So you want to keep I want to keep it as condensed and as concise as possible. Yes, there's still bits of waiting you have to do, but I think it's reasonable. Personally, I use F1 through F9. I use F1 through F9 for all my save files, and it's pretty simple. Um, in any case, that is how we got to where we are with fast any percent. That is why fast any percent exists. That is the reasoning behind each of the load points. I'm pretty sure I covered everything I wanted to cover. This was pretty good, especially for one take. Pretty proud of myself for that. If you guys have any more questions about fast any percent, be sure to check out our Discord. I should have a link in the description for this video. Um, Feel free to comment on this. Just ask, or if you don't understand why a certain thing is the way it is. I guess a question I haven't answered yet is, can you do this on console? No, this is PC only, unfortunately. Until we figure out how to get quick saves on console, tasky bless, this won't be possible on console. Any other questions I think I might want to answer here? Will this kill regular any percent? No, I don't think so. Um, most of the people that seem to have an interest in this are people that have been running it for a long time. Most of the new runners are still doing old any percent just because it is a more traditional way to experience the game. And if you guys are wondering how to install this, how to run this category, be sure to check out the resources page on speedrun.com. Let me bring this up right now, actually. So if you go to the Titanfall 2 speedrun page, click on fast any percent, view rules. There's all the rules you need. Tells you to abide. Oh, I already had this pastebin open. Tells you to abide by all the rules listed in this pastebin. This gives you an installation guide, and it tells you all the rules for all the load points. Has a little FAQ here. As well, if you go to the resources page here, this will give you all of the saves and a custom config to use the saves. For example, here, it's going to be like all these files right here. So this is what it's going to look like when you unpack the compressed file. So, yeah, that's fast 90%. If you guys haven't checked out my first video for it, I do have this on my YouTube, obviously, as we've been watching it. This is my second run of the category ever, 59.21. I think I can probably get this down to a 56 or a 55 if I play this really well. Maybe even lower. I'm not really sure right now. I'm going to keep grinding this category though. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video, and good luck on your runs. Peace.